Okay, my name is Derek, and this recording or this interview is for FAMS 4670, where I do an interview with someone of a different generation than I am. I am Generation X, and this is my father-in-law, and he is Generation, you're the baby boomer generation, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about different developments in life, and I just want your perspective of any similarities or differences that you see from your generation to this generation or whatever generation, any other generation. So the first one that we'll talk about is some life stage development. And we're going to talk about the middle and late childhood, and that's ages from 6 to puberty. And with this one, I know it's pretty generalized, but typically this is where kids begin to develop into their own selves. They start to learn about their bodies, and this is also when they start to rely on their friends. Yeah, I'd like to know your perspective on this.
During this stage in life, I think is when kids start learning that, they learn in the family, but they also are branching out a little bit, learning with friends, making friends of neighbors and that, and learning to do different things on their own, experiencing new things away from mom and dad, and so there's a lot of different things that they experience as they are going through this time in their lives, such as who I am, whether I'm a male or female, and things are happening and to my body, and if they've been with their parents, and their parents, depending on how they raise these kids, they could have a traditional idea of what gender identity is and who they are, the gender they are, and the way society's going nowadays, the family is getting secluded from this, and they're learning identity from the television, the outside influences from the traditional family. So I think that's a hard thing, and sometimes this is happening in school also. They're learning these hard, teachers are teaching things that aren't traditional family, and so they have a lot going on, and the changing, going into puberty and everything, their bodies are changing, and they don't really know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I think that in my generation, this was reiterated by the traditional family, that there are boys and girls, and those are the two genders that there are.
Okay, yeah. So the differences from your generation is there was, you said, the traditional family sense where there's two genders, there's boys and the girls, and it seems that nowadays with outside influences, people are exploring more of what their gender is at this age.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Good insight. Thank you. I also want to talk to you about Erik Erikson's psychosocial development theory. And on this one, I want to talk to you about, and this goes in line with what we just briefly talked about the identity versus role confusion. This is typically when a person is 13 to 19 years old. They are trying to identify themselves with their peers, with society, and according to Eric Erickson, if they don't complete this stage, then they're basically stuck. So I'd like to see hear your perspective about that.
Well, in my generation, the traditional family was taught, and people were taught that boys are boys and girls are girls, and biologically, and that's who you are, and everything was geared around that, and I think the traditional family has been taken out of so much of people's lives that they're confused what they are, who they are, and why they're going through things, and the views of the world are taking them down paths that for my generation didn't exist, and so we have a big gap in the generations after my generation.
Okay, so a definite difference then between the two. Okay,
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Lastly, I want to talk to you about the family life cycle. And on this one, I want to talk to you about an empty nester. And the reason why I want to bring this one up to you is because you're in that transition to where you have kids that are leaving for school. You also have kids that are leaving home to get married, start their own families. You're not quite a full empty nester, if you would, but you're in that transition. So I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Well, it's kind of a big adjustment for when you've lived your whole life with raising family and going through all these different emotions and identity things with your children, and teaching them right from wrong and helping them, and now you're sending them off into the world to fend for themselves, and it's kind of hard to let go of that when you've wrapped your life all up in your family for 40 years, and and then all of a sudden everybody's gone, and now you're wondering, what do I do now with the rest of my life?
Right.
But it's a good time too, because now our kids are having grandkids and having kids of their own, and we can be a part of their lives too, and in helping them and teaching them.
So the focus then seems to shift from your kids, right, leaving home and starting their own families, to where now they have kids of their own. So instead of focusing on your children, like as the main focus, you also have a focus now of the grandkids,
yeah,
and hoping that your kids pass on the traditions, the values, the beliefs that you have taught your children onto their children.
Yeah, and hoping that that's how they're teaching their kids, and that,
Right.
and sometimes that doesn't always work out that way either, because everybody is different and everybody has their own ideas on things, and they can make up their
minds for how they want
minds
to
for, yeah,
raise their children.
yep,
Yeah, I can see that kind of like a discord, if you would, right, from what you're hoping is happening, but it doesn't happen, or
yeah.
and so yeah, I think that's great. So, okay, well, thank you for the interview. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
And yeah,